Welcome every week, welcome everybody,
Every week.
every week to our weekly dispatch. We are really glad to be here today and thinking about Father's Day, which just went by, and I had sent a congratulations to Ana Luisa, who acts in that role. She
Father, mother.
yeah, gets to wear both. Anyway, I was thinking about it, and we were talking about how there's a sense of loss that I've been feeling this year, even though yesterday was so full of my lovely children, and I felt really proud and happy and fulfilled, and but on the other hand, a lot of this year, a lot of the last part of the year, I've really been feeling a lot of suffering and pain, and I don't know what's the word for it, just angst and horror over the patriarchy and the way the patriarchy is causing so much harm, just heartbreaking amounts of harm, and just wanting to and recognizing that spectrum, of both how there is a possibility of a masculine that is gentle and kind and caring, and that's the job of being masculine, is to hold people in a container, and there's this toxic possibility that we're experiencing so horribly these days. So we thought we'd talk a little more about that.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because that is kind of the language that's bandied around in this year, right? The manosphere, the toxic masculinity, the patriarchy that's, forcing women or others on the spectrum of gender to bow down to what they perceive as safe for them. Right? And
Yeah.
so, it's really interesting how we probably have all come across stories and languages around this. And
Yeah.
there is a loss. There is a loss
Huge.
of possibly identity or of uncertainty, whether, am I masculine enough? Am I too this is so masculine? So tell me more. Tell me more what's been like blossoming in your heart.
Yeah. Well, and I've I've lived most of my life as even made fun of for the fact that I have many more feminine qualities than a lot of men. I'm not
Mhm.
competitive. I don't do sports, and just a lot of that. But I've embraced that. I like that.
Mhm.
And I've also spent a lot of time, um, you know, in feminist work, if you will,
Mhm.
just really wanting to lift up the feminine and lift up and teach my children, my kids, my girls,
Mhm.
that they have power and that they're strong and that it's important. Um, and so, but what I'm recognizing is that as the world has, as that's kind of become the language of the progressives, if you will, there's a whole group of people who are feeling horribly threatened by that, and who are
Mhm.
feeling they've
Mhm.
been emasculated, and and the response, of course, is to lash out or to look for a hero. And there's somebody
Or
to
a
say,
model, right? It's a
yeah,
model of what it is to be masculine.
yeah. And so they've got
Mhm.
the Secretary of War,
Mhm.
and it's, on the one hand, it feels like it's absurd. It's so absurd to watch. And I just read something today about, we can make fun of it, we can laugh at it, but that's actually contributing to the
Yeah.
fascism, because we don't
Mhm.
take it seriously, and we're not taking it seriously enough, and looking at the history that's gotten us here, and how the people who are feeling that way, why there are so many people who feel that way and are being drawn to that. And so looking at the roots of those problems, we've there's a lot more work to be done than just laughing at it. And in fact, laughing at it causes more divisiveness, because we're looking down on this. The others are looking down on them, thinking they're
Mhm.
not smart enough to know better, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's an important part of it, which kind of leads to this sense of, how do we well, I love Sophie Strand's words, rewilding the masculine,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
think I might read a little bit of her work, because she has a
Mhm.
beautiful book
Mhm.
called The Flowering Wand, which I've
Mhm.
used many times actually in men's groups as guidance, and
Mhm.
um, it's very interesting that this young 20-something-year-old woman has created this incredible book that can help men find their way back
Right.
to reality. So that's a
Well,
bit, a bit, yeah,
yeah, it is a bit. It's also, I mean, aren't we calling for the rewilding of so many aspects of our lives, like rewilding our spirituality, and in some ways, rewilding our death and dying process too,
yeah, right,
because it's like we've taken this extreme handing over of our own power to the industry of death, and
yeah,
so we don't know what to do, and then we feel like left out, or we might have a myriad of feelings around it. But rewilding masculinity also joins in with rewilding our entire reality, our entire world, and
right,
you know going into nature and walking barefoot, right?
right, yeah,
Rewilding means sleeping according to the sunshine in the night. There's
mm,
just so many aspects of this moment in my history where rewilding actually does make sense. I mean, to the point that even in my front yard, like 5 years ago, I did kill all my lawn, and I have clover and bee balm and
mm,
dandelion and all kinds of like crazy flowers out there that are just like wild. But we're in drought here in Colorado, and my garden looks great because
yeah,
it's all the wild plants who are used to being tough.
yeah,
And so, if I were to bring this into this masculine, like, what are our natural attributes, both as men and women,
hmm,
on a continuum of attributes that we can say, let's leave room for them to shine a little bit more. Even
hmm,
when a man is gentle, that is still masculine. It's you're caring, you're
yeah,
tending to your loved ones, right?
yeah, exactly. And that's the redefinition, really. We don't have to define masculine as angry, mad, powerful,
Tough,
tough, yeah, tough
right?
guy, big muscles,
Violent. Yeah, yeah.
doing push-ups. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's wow, we could learn so much. And it is too, like we were talking, we mentioned earlier, this kind of spectrum of so rewilding, in a way, what it means is to find our way back to the earth, right? Find our way back to
Mhm.
what humans are not separate from
Right.
everything else.
Find our way back to ourselves in
Yeah,
so many ways, right? I
yeah.
was just gonna say this morning I was also reading an article about, somebody who went to Thailand to learn Muay Thai.
Mm. Okay.
And it was so fabulous because this author talks about, how there is an innate need to find ways to fight. And he
Ah.
said, the people learning to get out all that extra energy in a grounded and safe space
Yeah,
is actually really good for folks.
yeah, yeah,
He's like, if you're doing all this training, you're doing all this like fighting in a ring with like somebody who's checking you, like that's not okay, this is okay. He's like, you're not going to go out in the world and try to fight everybody else.
right.
Like, you're
Yeah,
spent. You're spent, and
yeah.
also the rules apply. Like you want to do it the right way. So
Mhm,
I don't remember who the author was, but I haven't finished the article, but it was so good because I thought about how many times we attribute fighting with masculinity,
yeah,
with violence with masculinity.
mhm,
And, women can be the same way. They're, we are not exempt from these activities or these desires.
mhm.
In fact, we get the cute little term of being mama bears when,
Right,
right?
right, yeah,
And, but, we don't give that kind of labeling to men and their that, when that
mhm.
something bubbles up, right? So
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I have my black belt in karate. When I took karate, many years ago, I started when I was 50 years old, right? So I
mhm.
was one of the older people in the class. In fact, my sensei was only a little bit older than me. And what she told us, and she was a really great example of exactly what you're talking about,
Mhm.
because she said the number one um, thing to do in any kind of violent situation is make it, try to help it stop,
Yeah,
is to try to calm things down and do
right.
every,
A
he
very
said,
a keto, right? Just like
exactly, do everything you can possibly do before you have to ever use this stuff, and just have this as your toolbox, if it comes to the point where you have to, but everything you do up until that is like the last thing you want to go to. And so you're not going around looking for somebody to try out your moves with, right? So I love one. I don't think it was her who said this, but
Mm.
somebody said your first karate move should be.
Well, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, rewilding means learning how to fight
Hmm.
in a way that keeps the
With
body safe,
honor.
the soul safe, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That,
Oh, we should say to the people on the audio that what I did when I said that was say
oh,
namaste.
yes. Namaste, right? I bow down to you.
All right. Yeah.
So, you know, I have to say I've been a boxer before.
Hmm.
I always knew, like, I got to learn the stances. I learned how to punch, and I never did it to protect myself, but I knew that I wouldn't be afraid
Hmm.
to do it, right?
Yeah.
And yet that doesn't make me more masculine. It doesn't make
Mm.
me uh it doesn't deter from me being a woman.
Right.
And a man who is a boxer is sometimes deemed like tougher, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we are so engendered by labels. We're so prone to saying, there's a man, this has got to be the stereotype, the trope, the whatever.
Hmm.
And so rewilding means to have like wild things grow out of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Poetry and hugs. And,
Hmm.
for me, it's like, I learned how to hit right. you know,
Right.
it's a spectral of humanity, of who we are, who we can
Hmm.
be.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's rewilding, right?
Yeah. Well, and it is recognizing that whole spectrum and that whole connection. I think it'd be a good time to read a little bit of
Yes,
what Sophie Strand said, because she, of course, is a brilliant writer
that's
and
right.
very poetic in her writing. But she said she talks about going back to the everything and kind of, it's not the opposites are there and exist. The masculine, the feminine, the dark, the light,
All
all
in
this.
between.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But it's we need to kind of, she says, melt our ideas of sentience as a purely human property or as a purely animal property or purely individual property. And anima or animation is inhalation, carrying molecules and spores and pheromones
Mm,
into our bodies from the landscape. And then we exhale, sharing cells that have clung to our deepest cells, slept inside the pith of our blood. With every exhalation, we decant ourselves back into the
mm,
world. How
mm,
could we be
mm, mm,
one or two or three? We are more
mhm,
gerund than cold,
mhm,
hard noun, more
mhm,
animacy than strictly animal. And
mhm,
yeah, it's so beautiful. And, she talks about everything comes in these dualisms, but she said, oh yeah, she said, holding out your hands. Why do we hold out our hands and say there's this and there's that? Because things and think that everything comes in dualism. It's just how many hands does the tree have? How many hands
mhm,
does the peony or the pileated woodpecker? How many hands is the
mhm,
mycelium using to crochet intimacy from plant
mm,
to
mm,
tree to plant through the
mm.
soil? The
Oh,
animate
thank
earth
you.
is a
Mm,
verb. I love that.
mhm,
A mycorrhizal system sewing together a whole forest. That
mhm.
is, I mean, God, thank you, Sophie. But
Thank you, Sophie.
that when I think of, how we can hold this thing in balance and find our way
Mhm,
back to a place where we don't have to define duality. You don't have to define one the
mhm,
masculine as this cruel, horrible thing, and you don't have to find
mhm.
masculine, feminine as, you know,
It's soft
soft,
and
yeah,
vulnerable.
vulnerable, yeah.
Right.
And you can find the way that we're all of that at once. That's to
That's
me the
right.
wild forest. That's what the
That's
forest
right.
shows us. So
Yeah.
we've heard that from the Sufi practice. The only true scripture is the scripture of nature, and so that's
Mhm.
because anything you ever need to learn, you can
That's
learn
right.
by going out and watching how the forest does it.
Well, and to that point, I think that one of my last poems that I read in one of my poetry books that I subscribed to, there was a particular poem that I loved, and I think it was talking about duality. There is no duality, because even as the sun, and there's light, There's like the penumbra. It's still
Mhm.
a little light, but it's also mixing with darkness. Just as the dawn after the long night, it's still pink and it comes in, little sweet colors. There is no like light switch. It's like dark
Right.
light, dark light, dark light. It's a spectrum of color.
Mhm, mhm. And I think when we start to see I kinda hate to say toxicity because it's overused, but the sense of suffering that happens, it's
Mhm.
quite often because of the, comfort that in some cases it's more comfortable to think that there is a switch, you know, and
Mhm.
that you've turned your light on, so you're good, and everybody else that's on the other side has forgotten to turn their
It's
light off,
not right. Right,
you
right,
know?
right, right.
And it's true of all spectrum of political, this the whole idea of, laughing at the people who don't know any better is just as much that kind of sense of we know we've got our lights on and they don't,
Right. Well,
which creates this divisiveness which has become so horrible.
right.
It's-
So let's just talk about that because I'm definitely not a laugher of others because, I'm a former special ed teacher. So
right,
like
right.
we don't
You
know.
don't
And
punch down, right?
right. And also, Hazrat Inayat Khan, my
Yeah,
favorite quote still is everyone to their own evolution.
yeah,
So if everyone around us is in their own evolution, what does it mean to rewild the relationships that we have with one another when people are so distinctly different from each other, right?
yeah.
So as you see masculinity branded in a way that is like, hard and boundaried and at times destructive, how can we meet it?
Mm,
And, like the breathing in and out, sharing that, decanting ourselves into them to be like, I see you and, I offer myself to you, my own crocheted self into the reality that you live in,
yeah,
because it really, I mean, we can't say much because they're all, on their own evolution, but how can we still be crocheted
yeah, yeah.
into their existence, right?
Right, or recognize that as we pull on one of the strands, we're tugging on them, Because they're on the other end of that strand, even though,
Mhm.
yeah, and then you come right back to that namaste that is the best
Mm.
move, which basically
I
means
bow
I
down.
bow to
Mhm.
the divine in you. I see the
Mhm.
divine in you, and
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that's a great point, especially as we're kind of thinking about that this is all good to talk about, but how do we live our lives this way? I mean, how do we
Mhm.
make a difference, and how do we help to rewild and reconnect everything and everybody? And it's got to be that recognition that we're all
Our own
bozos on the
paths.
bus.
Ram Dass, yes.
Yeah,
We are bozos. And, I mean, I just really appreciate how you've tasked us with rewilding masculinity. And I'm going to add, like, I want to rewild humanity.
yeah,
And as we, approach others, I also think that, yes, we can bow down to the divine in them, but it also requires us to learn some new skills, like,
yeah,
inquire with curiosity and grace, the story of another's life, and
yeah.
not necessarily just say, "Oh, well, that's why you're such a bozo." It's like, "Oh, I hear you, I see you, and I bow to the divine that has taken you through this."
Yeah, and
And that's all we need to do, right?
yeah, and I'm glad to be walking with you on
That's right.
this trail. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's not the sense of you're the bozo, but thank God we're all bozos together.
that's right, that's right. And I think that that's part of the rewilding aspect of our stories these days is like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
call to action and grace.
yeah, yeah, so much, and paying attention and listening and hearing each other. I mean, it's hard to do that in our world sometimes, especially when we're trying to do it on this crazy computer thing. But,
Mhm.
um, but the one of the ways that I've found has been very, very rewarding is just to make it a point, wherever I am, whenever I am, to just say hi to somebody, say hello, strangers, and ask them about their story, ask them what's
Right.
going on, and we just did another of our market days with a
Oh,
nonprofit, right? So we have a new
yay.
nonprofit. It's about helping people with end of life advocacy and affordability and
Beautiful.
accessibility. And so we've done two now where we went. Actually, yesterday I didn't go because it was Father's Day, but two dear friends of mine took it for me. But anyway, what that is, it's a booth at a farmer's market that talks about, what are you grieving today? And
Mhm.
so what we found is, and this is just a perfect example, that people walk up and, people also go, oh my God, no, thank you. But the people who do step up with courage, and with some vulnerability, are just eager. They're yearning for an opportunity to
Mhm.
tell their
Mm.
story. And it has
Mhm.
nothing to do with where they lie on the spectrum of
Mm.
politics or
Mhm.
where they lie in their religious beliefs or anything else. Because we met all sorts, and we had people tell us, that they knew they were going to see their beloveds in heaven again, and all the stories. But it's just the opportunity and opening up that opportunity for people to tell their stories
That's right.
is so important, and we can all do that, and we can change the world that way. I think it's going to happen in that kind of a realm, and day to day, person to person, human to human, in your own community. Um,
Mhm.
it's not going to happen on Facebook. It's just not going to happen on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe there's ways to guide things, but yeah, that's
Yeah, it's that this time space is too truncated at that point. I think it is about either being in front of people, or even sometimes I pray for people I see as I'm driving past,
yeah.
like, "Oh, that I noticed this." And I've been really, again, I've done this over the course of my life, but active imagination. I
Hmm.
know it's like poo-pooed in some circles, but
I love it.
if I can just, like, get into this meditative zone and just reach out in my mind to love and serve somebody who has either been horrible to me, or I know it are in despair, but I really can't access,
Hmm.
that is, like, my work. That is
Mm.
just, like, 3 minutes of me just throwing my energetic field all the way to touch them and just
Yeah, yeah. I
feel it out,
absolutely,
right? And
yeah,
then come
yeah,
back.
absolutely believe that those ripples
Right,
can
well,
can
I
matter. Yeah,
know. I mean,
yeah,
we
but
believe.
yeah. Well, and whether or not you believe that, you're even if it's not absolutely, affecting something in the world, you are affecting yourself. And by affecting
Mhm,
yourself, by putting yourself in that mindset of caring for people, and that
mhm.
mindset of being a compassionate, loving, caring person, you go out into the world a different person, and that makes a difference.
That's
So,
right.
so that's what we can do. That's our opportunity to
That's right.
rewild and remember.
Remember. Mhm,
Remember, we are members of that incredible, wild mycelial network of
mhm.
everything, not just
Yes,
humans, not just animals, not just trees, but
everything.
every resonant and
Mhm.
reverberating and vibrating atom we are vibrating with. So
Yes.
let's do our
Anyhow,
best. Let us
yes.
try to raise it up. That's our job.
Mm. Well,
All right.
thank you so much for thinking about this topic, because I think it's delightful to just sit around and talk about it, and then hopefully, this will be a conversation that encourages others to really begin their rewilding.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely if you can read Sophie's book, we'll put it in the
Yeah.
podcast notes, and we'd love to hear from you. We have Substack where you can engage with us on a chat. We would love to hear from you and hear your thoughts. And of course, listen to the podcast and tell all your friends
Yes.
and
Yes.
subscribe and love and like and all that stuff. And thank you for all you do in the world. And please be in touch.
Yes.
Adios.
Adios.
Grief and loss, conversations about the end